Philippine Navy officials on a visit to Japan have inspected a Maritime Self-Defense Force destroyer escort.
In the shadow of rising tensions in the West Philippine Sea, a silent but powerful move has just been confirmed. The Philippine Navy has completed its joint visual inspection on one of Japan's Abukuma-Class destroyer escorts, a signal that Manila may soon take a bold step in expanding its naval fleet. But here lies the critical question. If the Philippines accepts these warships from Japan, how will they be classified? What names will they carry? And most importantly, what role will they play in our defense posture under Rehorizon 3? Tonight, we break it down. Welcome back to Pinoy Guard, your channel for in-depth analysis on the Philippine military, South China Sea tensions, and global defense trends. I am your defense analyst, and today we will unravel the story behind the possible transfer of Abukuma-Class destroyer escorts from Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force to the Philippine Navy. This is not just about ships. This is about classification, identity, and doctrine, decisions that will shape how these vessels fit into our modernization roadmap and how they stand against the shadow of China's expanding maritime power. Stay with me, because what we are about to discuss could define the next chapter of Philippine naval history. Before continuing the discussion, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more content on Philippine defense modernization. Let us begin with history. The Abukuma-Class destroyer escorts were commissioned by Japan between the late 1980s and early 1990s. Built at a time when the Cold War was still ongoing, their primary mission was anti-submarine warfare. Each ship carries a displacement of roughly 2,000 tons standard and more than 2,500 tons fully loaded. They were equipped with sonar, torpedoes, depth charges, and a modest array of guns and anti-air weapons. In their era, these ships filled a critical gap in escort operations, protecting larger Japanese destroyers and convoys against Soviet submarines. Today, almost 4 decades later, these ships remain seaworthy, but technology has moved forward. Japan itself has begun phasing them out as it introduces newer classes, such as the Mogami-class multi-mission frigates. And here is where the Philippines enters the story. Earlier this month, a Philippine Navy delegation conducted a joint visual inspection on the JS Jintsu, DE-230, stationed at Sasebo Naval Base in Nagasaki. The Jintsu served as the sample unit for the entire Abukuma-Class, which numbers 6 in total. The purpose of the inspection was straightforward: to evaluate whether these ships remain suitable for Philippine waters and operational demands. The preliminary reports, as confirmed by MaxDefense Philippines, are encouraging. The Navy believes the ships are still reliable platforms, capable of patrolling vast waters, showing the flag, and providing credible presence in contested areas. But the inspection is only the first step. A full report and recommendation must still be submitted to Philippine Navy Headquarters, the Armed Forces of the Philippines General Staff, and finally, the Department of National Defense. Here comes the tricky part. If the Philippines commissions the Abukuma-Class, how should they be classified? Let us consult the Navy's current standards. Frigates are defined as displacing between 2,000 and 5,000 tons. Corvettes fall between 700 and 2,000 tons. Officially, the Philippine Navy no longer uses the destroyer escort category, although historically, the Navy once operated ex-United States World War II destroyer escorts under that very title. Now, the Abukuma-Class sits right on the boundary. Their standard displacement is 2,000 tons, just enough to qualify as a frigate. At full load, they climb past 2,500 tons, further reinforcing that classification. Yet we must also look at capability, not just tonnage. The Del Pilar-class patrol frigates, originally Hamilton-class cutters from the U.S. Coast Guard, are larger at 3,200 tons. But for many years, they were downgraded from frigate to patrol vessel due to their lack of missiles and advanced sensors. Only after the frigate upgrade project did they regain a semblance of their former classification. The Raja Suleiman-class patrol vessels, on the other hand, are heavier than the Abukumas, yet were categorized differently due to their limited combat systems. So where does that leave us? In all likelihood, if transferred, the Abukuma-class will be called frigates. They meet the tonnage requirement, and although their systems are dated, their anti-submarine heritage provides them with more teeth than our older patrol vessels. This classification carries weight. Calling them frigates elevates their symbolic value, sending a message that the Philippine Navy is not merely inheriting second-hand assets, but strengthening its order of battle with credible surface combatants. Now let us address the second question. What names should these ships bear? By Philippine Navy tradition, frigates and corvettes are named after national heroes. Larger auxiliary ships often bear names related to geography. Exceptions exist, such as the BRP Ramon Alcaraz, named after a decorated World War II naval officer, and BRP Conrado Yap, named after a Medal of Valor awardee who fought in Korea. But complications arise. The Philippine Coast Guard has already named some of its ships after heroes, such as BRP Gabriela Silang and BRP Melchor Aquino. The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources has done the same with BRP Lapu-Lapu and BRP Francisco Dagohoy. This narrows the available pool of historic names. One possible approach is to name the Abukuma-Class after lesser-known revolutionary figures or after heroes in naval history specifically. Imagine ships named after Captain Jose Andrada, Commander Felix Apolinario, or Commodore Alcaraz. These names would preserve naval heritage and avoid duplication with Coast Guard and BFAR vessels. Alternatively, the Navy could create a new tradition, perhaps naming them after provinces with strong maritime heritage or after Philippine seas and straits, tying their identity to the waters they will defend. Of course, classification and naming are only surface-level debates. The real issue lies in cost. Historically, Japan has transferred defense equipment to Southeast Asian allies either at minimal cost or through grant aid. For example, the TC-90 training aircraft were provided at a lease, then later turned over free of charge. If the Abukuma-Class is transferred under similar terms, the Philippines could gain 6 seaworthy frigates at only a fraction of the cost of new-build vessels. For perspective, a brand new frigate under the Jose Rizal-class program cost approximately 16 billion pesos each, or around $300 million. By comparison, the Abukuma-Class could be acquired, refurbished, and modernized for only a few billion pesos per ship. Even if the total rehabilitation reached 15 billion pesos, that would still be equivalent to acquiring just one new-build frigate, while adding 6 hulls to the fleet. The financial logic is hard to ignore. Now let us step back and examine the bigger picture. The Philippines is currently entering the Rehorizon 3 modernization phase, covering the years 2028 to 2033. This phase emphasizes joint force operations, maritime domain awareness, and credible deterrence in the West Philippine Sea. China's Coast Guard and maritime militia continue to harass Filipino vessels around Ayungin Shoal and Scarborough Shoal. Its navy deploys warships in contested waters with increasing frequency. Against this backdrop, the Philippine Navy needs numbers, ships that can patrol, escort, and project presence. The Abukuma-Class offers precisely that. They may not carry long-range missiles, but they provide platforms that can be upgraded with modern sensors, communication systems, and perhaps even surface-to-air or anti-ship missiles in the future. Their greatest value, however, lies in deterrence through presence. 6 additional frigates flying the Philippine flag across the South China Sea will complicate China's calculus, strengthen Manila's bargaining position, and reinforce alliance dynamics with both Japan and the United States. Integrating the Abukuma-Class will also force the Navy to refine its doctrine. Currently, the fleet relies heavily on the Jose Rizal-class frigates as its only modern frontline combatants. With the addition of the Abukumas, the Navy could establish multi-layered task groups, pairing modern missile-armed frigates with upgraded Abukumas for patrol and escort roles. This builds joint force resilience. It allows the Air Force and Navy to coordinate better under Rehorizon 3, with the Abukumas acting as essential nodes in a wider maritime defense network. So what does this all mean? If the Philippines accepts the Abukuma-class destroyer escorts, they will most likely be classified as frigates. They could carry names honoring revolutionary heroes or naval figures, preserving history while projecting power. Financially, they offer a cost-effective way to expand the fleet, gaining 6 hulls at the price of 1 modern warship. Most importantly, their arrival would send a message, both to the Filipino people and to the region. A message that the Philippines, backed by allies like Japan, will not stand idle while its waters are threatened. That even secondhand, these ships carry with them the weight of history, the spirit of resilience, and the power to deter aggression. The Abukuma-class may not be the most advanced vessels in the world, but in the hands of the Philippine Navy, they could become something far greater, symbols of sovereignty, guardians of our seas, and stepping stones toward a stronger, more credible maritime defense. And in an age where China's shadow looms larger each day, that is a gamble worth taking. This is Pinoy Guard. Stay sharp, stay aware, and remember, our seas are our future.